Okay, so good morning everybody. My name is Kevin Brearley. I'm the Director of Global Channel Sales at Micro Focus. I'd like to say thank you to everyone for joining our webinar today. Particular thanks goes to the folks at CMS who, through demonstration of this, continually demonstrate their commitment to our mutual partnership. We work very closely together with CMS. They have a first-class supporting infrastructure for vendors like us, helping us to market and distribute our technology to our partners out there. This is one of a series of presentations we are conducting to existing and potential partners, and I hope you find this as useful as previous attendees have. I'm going to be joined by my colleague today, Alain Salesse, and in the best traditions of pre-sales, he'll be doing most of the work in this presentation. We at Micro Focus, and CMS for that matter, have seen a significant upswing recently in our cloud-focused technology across the board. And frankly, we need assistance. We're reaching out to forward-thinking service delivery partners with what we believe is a significant opportunity to help you grow the delivery side of your business, helping the customers reach their immediate needs and platform objectives. We'll talk a lot more about that, of course, later. We'll spend the next 45 minutes or so covering the following. Essentially, we'll be talking about a unique approach to the migration of essential production workloads that will introduce the very latest Micro Focus migration technology. We know from experience that when customers consider a platform change of any kind, whether small or high scale, they want to know what is the most practical and efficient approach that absolutely minimizes the risk to the business of their clients. Some of these migration projects appear daunting and highly complex, so they want a service partner who can instill confidence right from the start with a solid plan, with a proven execution methodology. We're going to leave questions through to the end. They're not audio questions, so if you could please put any questions you have through the chat mechanism. I'm now going to turn over to Alain, who's going to explain how, through the adoption of unique technology, we can help you achieve this solution for your customer base.
Thank you, Kevin. So first I'm going to start off with some of the key challenges that we see our customers facing when they're looking at workload migration projects. Of course, as we know, cloud adoption has been continuing to increase, and most organizations are already in the cloud or looking to go into the cloud. As a consequence of that, spend on IT infrastructure will be migrating towards the cloud, and it won't be long before organizations are spending as much on cloud-based infrastructures as they are on traditional on-premise equipment. And of course, IIS has been growing very fast over the last few years, and that growth rate is set to continue. So there's plenty of opportunity for organizations who are going into the cloud. Of course, many organizations and service providers who are migrating workloads into the cloud almost certainly have used one or more free migration tools. And they're as good as far as they go, but there are some challenges with those. And I'd like to break those challenges down into challenges for the business and challenges for the service provider or the IT department. For the business, there's really two key challenges that we see. One is that the process is quite disruptive, because typically you have to take down the machines for the entire length that it takes to replicate into your target platform. And businesses are more reliant than they ever were on IT services, and so that could be very costly to the business or just simply unacceptable. Even more important than that, perhaps, is the risk that's associated with these types of migrations. Organizations want the confidence that whenever they're undertaking a data center transformation, that the services are going to work in the new platform. So ideally, they want the ability to test the systems before they cut over, and free tools don't allow you to do that. Furthermore, they are all one-way streets. They're all provided typically by the vendors to get you onto their platform, so they don't provide a mechanism to get off. So if you encounter a problem, you've got no way to recover from that, and you could be faced with a lengthy outage. Typically, organizations bring in service providers or service integrators to do these types of activities, and so IT have a different set of challenges, as well as having to address those demanded by the business. From the IT perspective, there's typically a lot of effort involved in these tools. There's lots of manual reconfiguration. They're typically not very scalable and have little resilience to network outages and otherwise. And most of these tools have pretty limited platform support, particularly when you're migrating Linux servers. And so to migrate a typical estate, you may end up using multiple tools, which then they have different methodology, different approaches to how they work, and then that could lead to errors and increased costs on the delivery part. So let's talk about these challenges in a bit more detail. Of course, an obvious one is minimizing the downtime. It used to be the case that IT could say to the business, we're taking down your business service at this time and it's going to be down for this length of time, and that schedule would be imposed by IT. That is no longer the case. The business are very much involved in this process, and IT has to work within the demands of the business. Businesses are much more reliant than they ever were on IT systems, and so they demand near zero downtime and for those transformations to happen at a time that suits them, not that when it suits IT. It's all very well me telling you these things, but it's obviously much better to hear these words from our customers. So the text in blue there are quotes from our customers that they are happy for us to publish. So PlateSpin technology allows you to minimize the downtime and do that work at a time that suits them through lots of automation. Risk is another huge part of the challenge. Businesses want to be sure that when the systems arrive at their new platform that they're going to work first time and there's not going to be any unforeseen problems. And that requires a solution that enables them to test those business services before they cut over. And this is one of our unique features in the PlateSpin technology, is pre-cutover testing, and therefore you're taking most of the risk out of it. That testing can be done multiple times in different stages, and it encompasses all of the changes that will be made to that service before it goes live, including things like network changes and changes of IP address, for example. And therefore, you're not leaving anything to chance. And you know what's going to happen. If there are problems, you can solve them before you go live. And obviously, as a service provider, if you can demonstrate that approach to your customers, then that puts you in a much stronger position than your competitors who can't. From the service provider point of view, particularly when you're going into scalable, large-scale migration projects, organizations typically outsource these, and often it's chosen on the basis of cost. And so you need, as well as being able to satisfy the business demands, you need to be able to do it as efficiently and cheaply as possible. And that requires large amounts of automation and predictable costs. And that comes from having a standard methodology and good planning. And this is another area that we excel in. Our technology is used by service providers all over the world who are doing both large and small migration projects. And you can see here from different quotes about the amount of time that these service providers say it saves them over comparable technologies. Of course, everyone has complex estates of infrastructure. There can be a mixture of physical and virtual, Windows, Linux, different cloud platforms, different applications, and the worst thing is to have multiple tools to do each of those types of migrations. Having been able to standardize on one tool and one methodology dramatically reduces your cost and implementation, as well as reducing the risk associated with doing the migration project. And so what you need for that is a migration solution that supports every possible scenario, be it Windows or Linux, physical or virtual or cloud, anywhere to anywhere. And that means if you can have a solution that does that, it allows you to have standard approaches, standard methodology, and allows you to realize the investment that much faster, as well as giving you the customers the confidence that their systems are safe while they move into cloud or other platforms. As a consequence of the move to cloud, particularly, we've seen over the last 2 years that migration projects are getting bigger. A few years ago, if you'd asked me what a large migration project looked like, I would have said it was 200-300 servers. Now we commonly see migration projects in the thousands or tens of thousands. And as you scale up, the challenges I've outlined previously just get larger. You're no longer migrating individual workloads, but you're migrating entire business services. And as you do that, the downtime becomes more critical than it was before, and the involvement from the business is even more than it was. And they want the ability to do testing at various stages throughout that process. And of course, the planning just becomes a bigger part of the project. It becomes less about execution and more about planning. So as a vendor, we recognized early on that scalability was key, and we needed to provide a means of achieving the largest possible scale, because it just magnifies. What we need there is even more automation than you had before, ideally with some means of bulk configuring the migration activities and zero-touch migrations. That's from an IT perspective. From a business perspective, people are typically trying to do this with spreadsheets and project management tools, which are not very well designed for that type of planning, and they don't help you align with the business. So we'll also need to have stakeholder communication, multi-phase service testing, and better project planning capabilities. And all the things I've just outlined are within the PlateSpin portfolio. Of course, this ultimately comes down to finding opportunities and minimizing your cost and maximizing your opportunities to win new business. Through our high levels of automation, you can save significant amounts of money delivering the project, and you can get there faster, which allows you to be more competitive in the marketplace. So those are an outline of the challenges that our PlateSpin technology is designed to address. So I'm just going to go in at a high level into our approach to how we deal with those challenges. So I'll just mention one bit of terminology, which is this concept of a workload. It's the concept that we use within the PlateSpin world. And a workload is the operating system, the applications, the data, everything that sits on top of the operating system. And it gives us a common term for both physical and virtual machines, because it makes no difference to PlateSpin what the underlying platform is. And this workload, which is a single entity, we treat it as one unit, and it's portable between physical, virtual, and cloud platforms in any direction. So the main use cases are sort of fourfold, really. I'll start off with these ones on the left, which are the sort of what I call the classical use cases. They're around doing virtualization of physical servers and potentially refreshing existing physical servers. There is still plenty of physical servers out there in the world, and that will continue to be the case for many years to come. So physical to physical and virtual to physical are still, significant use cases for workload migration projects. Of course, there are newer use cases now. We see a lot of moving between from one virtual platform to another. That could be people upgrading VMware, switching from VMware to Hyper-V, or going on and off an open source hypervisor like Zen or KVM. And of course, the reason we're here today is to talk about cloud. So obviously we're seeing a lot of adoption of Azure and AWS and other cloud platforms, organizations who are switching between service providers or adopting some form of private or hybrid cloud deployment. These are the sort of newer migration scenarios that we're seeing a lot of at the moment. So our technology is a highly scalable migration solution that covers both the planning and execution. That's kind of our unique selling point. And it focuses both on the needs of IT and the business. It's not just a tool for the IT department or service provider. So the way that we minimize the downtime and risk, which are the two key business challenges, is through this sort of typical four-step process, which starts off with taking an initial workload copy of your source machine, be that physical or virtual, Windows or Linux. We do that copy while that machine is up and running, doing its usual day-to-day job. No one will really notice it's happening. It's no more disruptive to the server than taking a backup of it. At the end of that process, you have an operational replica of that machine on your target platform, which you can test and verify within a few clicks within the user interface. Effectively, we're bringing up in an isolated network so that either the workload on its own can be tested or an entire business service could be tested. You could bring up a domain controller, database, web servers, and other application components, test an entire business service end-to-end within a few clicks within the user interface. We then go into incremental sync process, which then keeps the source machine and the new target machine up to date with respect to each other. And these steps 2 and 3 can be repeated as many times as you like, because you may want to have taken that initial workload copy several weeks in advance of the cutover date. The final step is the cutover, where we actually do the final sync of the data from source to target, having stopped the source application. We do a final sync, and then we turn off that source machine and then make the target, put it into production with production network settings. So that's where the outage takes place. But of course, because you're not replicating the entire workload at that point, the downtime is pretty minimal at that point. It's measured in minutes rather than hours. So that's the typical migration process. There are other ways of doing it, but this is the norm. So as you get into large-scale migrations where you may have hundreds or even thousands of servers to migrate, then project management and planning just becomes an ever bigger part of the process. And so we have this project management approach to migration, which involves kind of 3 steps. First of all, there's a discovery phase. You then go into a planning phase where you plan the future state of those machines once for the transformation to happen. And then you go into an execution point, the phase where you actually execute that plan. And what we're doing there is aligning you more closely with the business, giving you better communication with the business through dashboards, and driving that plan through greater levels of automation. The execution part can be completely automated or involve different levels of manual intervention. So the idea is that this becomes much more about planning than it does about execution. So the topology, the infrastructure is that there's a transformation server where you do the planning. This is an appliance that we sell, and then that transformation appliance hooks into one or more migration servers. So for those of you who may have used PlateSpin Migrate before, those servers at the bottom are just PlateSpin Migrate, which you may have used. And then PlateSpin Migrate. So you start off in the transformation server doing all the planning, and that's typically done by project managers and architects and probably customer involvement. And that's where you break down maybe the large number of servers that the customer is planning to transform into smaller units that you put dates around when they're going to happen, in what order, all the things that need to be changed as part of the migration. And then once the planning has happened, then it's handed over to migration specialists to execute on that plan. One of the key differentiators between our technology is that we integrate with PlateSpin Migrate to actually do a lot of that work for you, so it can actually be zero touch. As you execute the plan, then we provide stakeholder communication through dashboards, so you can communicate to the business very easily and clearly how the project is progressing. These are not capabilities that are easy to do through traditional tools like Microsoft Excel and Microsoft Project. So let's just run through those 3 steps in a little bit of detail. The discovery is quite straightforward. You can either just give discover an environment to a subnet search, and it will bring up all the source machines in a few seconds. Likewise, you can discover the target VMware infrastructure, so all the networks, the data stores, resource pools, and clusters, etc. Alternatively, you can bulk import the information through a spreadsheet. One of the nice features of this capability is that there's no need to share passwords. They can be defined once within the tool, and you then just pick them from a list. You never actually see what the password is. And of course, you could even hand that task over to the customer, so they never even share the password with you as a service provider. So that adds a greater level of security around the process. So the planning is typically done in bulk, so you can bulk select multiple workloads and define the future state of those workloads, and you can organize them into waves and batches, which are the smaller units of servers that you're going to migrate around the same time. So a batch typically could have 5 to 50 workloads in it that you're going to cut over on a particular weekend in the future. You can organize the waves and the batches and the projects entirely as you see fit. There's no prescription on us. You could be doing it by application or by location or by server rack or business owner, production status, any of those or any combination of those, whatever works best for the customer, and you typically be doing that planning with the customer nearby. So this is what the UI looks like. On the left-hand column, you've got the current environment, which has been discovered by the transformation server, and then you can define you can edit the columns to define the to-be state of those machines, and it will point out any information that's required to complete the migration. You can see it there on my screenshot. Should we read there? It says 4 errors, so it needs 4 additional pieces of information before that migration is ready to be executed. And then when you go into the execution phase, then this is where you hand over to typically to a migration team who actually execute the plan. As I said, we have fully automated migrations for some scenarios. At the moment, it's just available for vSphere, but later on this year, we'll have a new release of the technology which also supports Azure, vCloud, Director, and others will follow. So for those of you who may have used PlateSpin Migrate before, then you may recognize that workflow as being that sort of an extended version of that 4-step process that I outlined before. Obviously, it has more steps, but the key thing is that you can, if you wish, put human sort of stops points in the process, so you can let PlateSpin execute that process entirely automated, with hands-free. You can build your own automation in there. So, for example, you could do pre-cut over testing automated, or that could be a manual process, for example. But the whole process of driving that migration through the PlateSpin Migrate engine can be done for you, which means that you can just you can achieve higher levels of scale, but also you probably need fewer migration specialists, and it's much more about the planning because the execution just happens for you, and you're looking for potentially for the things that don't go according to plan, as opposed to having to execute every single one and watch it, which obviously, if you're doing these things out of hours, could have a significant reduction in your costs to deliver the project. So that's the PlateSpin technology at a high level. We'll just move into a little bit about what is a good fit for our technology. So any large migration project, really, the larger the better. The challenges and our approach, the benefits of our approach just get better with scale. So larger projects have even more compelling reasons to adopt our technology. That's not to say that we don't do small environments, but typically the benefits are not quite as strong. But really, anything from the sort of tens of servers into the thousands of servers are a very good fit for PlateSpin. So those sorts of projects could be things like data center consolidations, people who are rationalizing data centers into one location, organizations who are switching service providers, or going into a cloud such as Azure or AWS. We do see a lot of VMware activity, both VMware to VMware. They may be going from an old, say, say vSphere 4 to vSphere 6, for example, where of course you can use vConverter and even vMotion, but they're not particularly scalable solutions. So our technology is still a very good fit even in those scenarios as well. We've seen a lot of activity, people coming out of going either onto open source hypervisors or getting off open source hypervisors. And particularly we've seen challenges with organizations who have XEM and KVM based hypervisors who struggle to get off them because they're para-virtualized machines and they have specialist drivers and stuff which are very hard to replace. And in those scenarios, PlateSpin is really the only solution that our customers have found to address those types of migration scenarios. And of course, Hyper-V is still around in big numbers. Organizations are either going on to Hyper-V or getting on Hyper-V, and the tooling around that is pretty limited as well. So all of these are very good opportunities or types of projects that to look for in your customers. So I'm going to hand it back to Kevin, who's going to talk to you about the partner program.
Okay. Excuse me. So thank you very much, Alain. That's good. So while we digest that, then I'm just going to give you a brief view over the Micro Focus Partner Program and what it actually means for you as existing or potential partners going forward. And just a reminder, if you do have questions, please use the chat mechanism which is available to you. Okay, so what can Micro Focus bring to you? So Micro Focus, as many of you I'm sure are aware, is a UK-based company, a global company, going through a significant growth period. Worldwide presence with something like 5,000 partners currently. Although this figure is an accumulation of a number of acquisitions we've done over the past decade. And so right now we're currently looking to refresh this partner base with new blood to support and benefit from us moving into, realistically, the top 8 pure-play software companies globally, behind the likes of companies like Oracle, Microsoft, SAP, and so on. Let's just take a quick view on some of those acquisitions, because it's quite important to understand where Micro Focus is coming from. We were a little old UK company, now we're a significant global player. The rapid growth has been through key acquisitions, notably Borland in the past with their automated testing tools, Attachmate more recently with significant technologies around host connectivity to the IBM world, identity access, security management, and of course, very notably SUSE Linux. And of course, around the corner we have a current plan to merge with HPE software later this year. In September is the current plan for that. Now, the Micro Focus model is to protect investments of customers. The investments that they've made in technologies over the years, which they need to breathe new life into the products and particularly into their business critical applications. So this will enable you to help your customers move forward to capture the latest in IT trends at low risk and cost. And by that I mean capturing cloud benefits quickly, whether from Windows, Linux, or even IBM mainframes, needs to be done with no regression in business functionality. Micro Focus is very good at taking what first appears to be a mixed bag of technologies and then aligning them in relevant solution areas, all of which are listed here, and workload management is the one we're focused on with PlateSpin and Transformation Manager. It's important for us to encourage our partners to become proficient, not just on particular products, but in the solution area as a whole. This will encourage wider, more meaningful customer conversations that you can have to help you deliver a stronger capability. It encourages cross-selling and it maximizes the opportunity for you to hone your service delivery capabilities. Essentially, around 50% of our revenues are partner related. We want this segment to grow considerably, and we recognize we need to simplify our partner program into today's two-tier process. We have a brand new partner portal, whole new process for joining the partner community. Registration quite basically gives you easy access to a wealth of supporting assets for all the information you need to help you get up to speed on things like PlateSpin. getting you familiar with the technology across the board, and the opportunity, importantly, with the sales messages that we can give to you that might bring. Certification is the next stage and is really quite important to us. Certification allows you to focus on deal profitability, preferential discounts, rebate structures, and so on. We will even provide marketing funds for those folks who have been certified to help you promote your services in a particular solution area. We provide quality partner management, account management if you like, and of course premium technical support and training to keep you constantly informed and up to date. So it's always best to get certified and take advantage of the education that's available to you. We're going to talk a little bit more about certification and that enablement in just a second. So, Alain?
Thank you. So I'm just going to mention the licensing model for PlateSpin. It's very straightforward. Of course, whenever we sell PlateSpin licenses, we include maintenance with that, and that includes really two things. One is 24/7 global technical support, because we recognize that the majority of migration activities happen outside business hours, so obviously us providing you office hour support is not much use to you. And of course, as part of that maintenance, you also get software updates, patches as required. So there are two technologies that we've talked about today. One is PlateSpin Migrate, which is the execution engine that actually performs the migration. And you need one license per workload that you're going to migrate. And it doesn't matter whether that's a physical or virtual machine, whether it's Windows or Linux. We don't care how many processor cores or anything else. It's just one per effectively a guest operating system. So it's very easy for you to determine how many licenses you need. And you can buy those licenses in two flavors. First of all, there's a perpetual license, and that allows you to do unlimited migrations for a particular workload. The license is locked to a workload, so you can't use it to migrate another machine, but you can migrate that server to another platform if you wish. So for example, you can take a physical server, migrate it onto a hypervisor on-prem, and then maybe sometime down the road you might then put that into the cloud, and that would not consume another license. So if you buy a perpetual license, you need to pay for the maintenance on top of that perpetual license. The other way that you can buy it is what's called a project license, and this is probably the most common way that people buy it. It basically allows you to do one migration per workload, because typically these are done as projects, but there's no particular requirement to migrate servers at a future state, or if there was, then there would be a different project with different costs associated with it. And that license is valid 2 years from the purchase date. But the difference is between the perpetual and project is that the project license includes the maintenance fee as well. So it's basically just one line item that you have to purchase when you're looking at project licensing. PlateSpin Transformation Manager, which is the planning tool which also drives the execution tool, it's a separate license altogether at the moment, and you need one license for each device that you're going to do planning within the tool. Transformation Manager can be used to do planning for devices and servers that aren't necessarily going to be migrated using the PlateSpin Migrate technology. So you could potentially have a scenario where you're doing a lift and shift or using some other form of migration technology to get from point A to point B, and therefore you might need additional PlateSpin Transformation Manager licenses beyond the Migrate licenses. As you can see there, it's only sold as a project license, so like the Migrate project license, it's valid for 2 years from purchase, and again the maintenance is included. So it is pretty straightforward. So we're just going to talk a little bit about enablement and some extra resources that can help you go to market. So we're going to talk a little bit about the competition. I started out talking more generally about free migration tools, and of course every platform vendor offers some capability to onboard service into that environment, be that VMware, Microsoft, cloud platforms, etc. But as I mentioned before, they typically have very weak capabilities. Some of them are only command line or APIs. There's not even a specific tooling for them. But really, to defend against those types of solutions, we always emphasize our key selling point, which is around the downtime that's typically associated with those tools, the lack of testing, the lack of automation, the amount of manual configuration that's involved when you use those tools, and the lack of scalability, and typically they use quite slow replication technology. So even though you have to pay to use the PlateSpin technology, the costs are more than offset by the benefits that you get back in terms of the amount of time it saves you. Of course, there are various as-a-service solutions cropping up, particularly for the cloud platform, and typically the story is quite similar with as to the vendor-only solutions. What we've observed is that most of those as-a-service technologies require access to the source hypervisor. That's the key differentiator for us, and to get that access, it means that it's pretty much impossible for them to migrate certain scenarios. So, for example, if your customer is in a service provider, a hosted environment already, they are never going to get access to the underlying hypervisor, and so you can't use one of those solutions to get that. PlateSpin operates at the source environment. It operates at the guest operating system level, so we do the migration from inside the operating system, so we never need access to the source hypervisor. Many of you, our main competitor, we would say in this migration space is Double Take Move, and many may have used that in the past. They have a fundamentally different approach to how they tackle the challenges of this. The key thing is that they require an existing target operating system in order to which they replicate the changes between the source and target operating system. So in some respects that's a simpler approach because they don't have to worry about drivers and tools, but it is a more manual process because you have to create that target machine, particularly if you're doing something to physical, going physical to physical, for example, you're going to have to build a Windows operating system or Linux operating system on that server before you can do the migrations. It also does real-time replication, which on the face of it sounds great, but it needs a lot more network bandwidth than a scheduled replication. So, their sort of weaknesses, or how we perceive that, is that they have no pre-cutover testing capability because the target system is not fully functional until you cut over, and so that obviously is a challenge from a risk perspective, and the user interface is quite labour intensive. So we can compete very well with them, but they are hard to displace unless the customer or you've had a bad experience with them. Microsoft are sort of positioning Azure Site Recovery, which is their disaster recovery solution, as a means of getting their customer systems into the Azure platform. But the thing is, it's a disaster recovery solution, it's not a migration solution, and so that brings in a number of challenges. First of all, they may say it's free, but it's only free for a short space of time, and then after that you have to pay for it. But the biggest challenge we see is the cutover process, because during that cutover, the new target machine is always reverted to a recovery point, and that means that you're going to lose some data. Unlike the other as-a-service solutions I mentioned before, it requires access to the source hypervisor, which means it could be unrealistic for it to be used in a managed hosting environment. It does deal with physical servers as well as virtual servers, but it uses an entirely different process for dealing with those physical servers, so it's hard to get consistent methodology there, and there is no way to go back to a physical machine if that was your source environment, and so it does have some limitations as well. That's our key competitors. Of course, through the partner program, you have access to everything that we have internally, but there are other resources as well. So you can download trials of both PlateSpin Migrate and Transformation Manager from our website. We have various white papers, and if you want to know see demo videos, for example. You can look them up on YouTube. We have plenty of customer references on our website. I think we have more success stories for PlateSpin than we do for any other technology on our portfolio, because our customers have such good success with it that they're very happy to put their name up on our website and tell other customers about their success. And of course, even through a trial deployment or an evaluation, you are entitled to technical support. So those are the phone numbers there. We have as Kevin mentioned before, we have a certification and training program for PlateSpin. For the technical side of it, then we would expect that you would do a 2-day training course, which is typically done online, although we can do it on site as well if we have enough people to justify getting everyone in the same room. And at the end of that course, we always encourage people to do the technical certification, which is a prereq for achieving the Premier Partner status. There is a sales certification as well, and we provide through the portal, so you can do that as well, because you need sales and technical certification for Premier Partner status. So just to round up then, if we talk about our execution approach, which is PlateSpin Migrate, then as I've talked to you before, the reasons that people choose that technology is because it's designed to minimize the downtime for this incremental replication process. It's also designed to minimize the risk associated with making these transformation changes, because you can test the target systems as often as you wish prior to cutover. So that's obviously very reassuring to the customers. As a service provider, then it will save you time, because you can migrate multiple workloads simultaneously, very quickly and very reliably. A single PlateSpin Migrate server can handle up to 40 different migration activities at the same time. And if you were to wish to achieve greater scale than that, then you can just deploy additional PlateSpin Migrate servers. That component is not licensed, so it doesn't cost you anything. We have the highest levels of automation in the industry for doing these migrations. All of the activities that need to be performed on a server through a typical migration process are done for you. It's just a matter of configuring those things through the user interface. So for example, we will install VMware tools on the target platform when you're going onto VMware. We'll replace it if it's already there, if it's out of date. If you're going between Hyper-V and VMware, we would switch those tools automatically. We allow you to change the network identity, be it the host name and/or IP address, what VLANs it's connected to. All of that sort of stuff is just configured through the UI. And through that high level of automation, we're significantly reducing the manual effort, which means that you can do more with less resource. And of course, as we've talked about before, if you add PlateSpin transformation on top of that, then it can be a potentially zero-touch migration. It's just about planning and much less about execution. And having one toolset and methodology for any migration scenario, be it Windows, Linux, physical or virtual, cloud, means that you can, it's much easier for you to nail down your costs and your approach and come up with a consistent methodology. Without planning, technology that sits on top of the migration technology, we take that automation and scalability to the next level, and it allows you to significantly reduce the resources that you need to deliver a project and to get there faster and also with greater predictability. What we've heard from our organizations who are doing large scale migrations, who may be into the hundreds or thousands of servers, is that this is the biggest challenge for them, is that the lack of predictability over the process and when it's going to finish, what issues they're going to have along the way, is the thing that makes it hardest for them to nail down their costs. And so the better planning you have, the easier it is to understand your costs. And of course, it's great to have that improved alignment with the business and better communication with the business. And through talking to our service integrators, we believe that our technology allows you to realize value up to 50% faster than our competition. And just to talk finally about what makes our technology different to our competitors, it's about the highest levels of scalability and automation in the industry for this type of activity. It's about putting workload testing at the heart of its solution. No other migration solution has built-in user testing. And we have this unique planning and execution capability that both caters for the needs of business and IT. We've been doing Linux migrations for longer than anyone else, although some of our competitors have recently introduced that capability. It's not nearly as mature as ours. So anywhere where there's Linux workloads involved, we are typically the best solution. And this is why we're very happy to sort of say that we are the enterprise-grade migration solution. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Alain. Let's see if we've got any questions. Oh, not so far. It's okay. All right, so jolly good. I just one last reminder then, if you want to put forward a question, just use the chat mechanism. But there you have it. Let's just move on down. I hope you got a clear understanding then of what PlateSpin and Transformation Manager and the combined effect, how powerful that can actually be. Today, right now, we are implementing projects with thousands of workloads around this technology with some very large logos, if you like, global logos who have adopted this. The real key thing for our partners, though, is it allows you to really up the game if you're looking to do that. It allows you to take on more complex projects. It allows you to take on more high-level projects with more and more workloads. That's what PlateSpin is all about. That's the unique approach that Micro Focus has. Okay, well, with that, we really do appreciate your attendance. For further information, you have a contact address associated here with David Hooker at CMS. You also have some pointers to some key enablement collateral, which is on our website too. So once again, thank you very much for your attendance, and thank you.
Thank you.